Again, we're going to open up the floor for your questions. You can ask the question in any language, and I'll try to do the translation. Please, let's stick to maximum 30 seconds for each question. Any questions? All right, so I will do the questioning because I have a couple of questions that I need your opinion or your perspective regarding. We've been speaking about international policies and even regional policies and the coordination that might happen between them. My question, taking in consideration your legal background, like if we take a look at the UN Environment website, we're gonna find a lot of conventions, a lot of reports, a lot of recommendations, and a lot of agreements. But my question would be, how can we legally reinforce those to assure commitment of countries, even the ones who signed on that, and how can we legally sort of create a framework of follow-up to make sure whatever recommendations are being executed the right way. My second question, if you don't mind, ma'am, would be regarding the next steps for the future. And taking a look at your presentation, I had a feeling that it was mostly, and correct me if I'm wrong, related to developed countries. Yes, if we speak about the pandemic, we've been all touched to different countries. I can even make the point that the developed countries kind of suffered more than the developing for some reasons that researchers are trying to figure out. But my question would be, what are, in your opinion, the main elements for countries like Algeria? We're trying to figure out, I've seen that you related the environmental sustainability to the economic sustainability, but we're in a country here where we're trying to figure out the economic sustainability while learning and figuring out the environment sustainability. So what are the tips that you might give to an Algerian context rather than a developed world country? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your question. Very, very interesting ones, very important ones, actually. Well, about the first question that concerns the legal enforcement and the follow-up, especially relating to the international policy and international and the regional policy. Well, let's say that all of us, we know that the environmental law is a soft law and that is based mainly on the collaboration and cooperation of the contracting parties that are part of these multilateral environmental agreements. The experience is telling us that it's very important to link these legal instruments also with the economical ones, the economical funds that are very important for the progress and for the development that should be a sustainable ones. The other instrument that I may touch is the presence of the compliance committee, the instrument that is present also in the Aarhus Convention, the Montreal Convention, as well as the Barcelona system. This instrument is based in form of experts called by the contracting parties that are called to support, to advise, to help the contracting parties, first of all, to better interpret and to better understand how these important instruments, legally binding instruments, should be interpreted and should be implemented in each country as well as in the area, for instance, the Mediterranean area. For what is concerned the Barcelona Convention. What I'm saying is that probably what is very important is to build together what is called in Latin the opinio juris ac necessitatis. That means that the people, the international community, and the country should first of all understand and be convinced that these legal instruments are first of all necessary to be implemented, not because legally binding, but because they are important instruments for the linear sustainable growth of each country. And this is the answer for my first question. For the second one, especially concerning developing countries or especially concerning Algeria in this post-pandemic era, it is true that the pandemic probably touched very much the developed countries, but as well it was a pandemic, so it touched all countries. But how I was underlining during my presentation and communication, it is that probably we need to take the chance of the experience of our past, and probably we need to talk about more and more about development and not about growth, simply growth. We cannot grow infinitely. We better point our attention to the quality of our life, and therefore take into account our history, our background, as Algeria is a very old history. We may take the chance to have in the future a develop that is more based in our tradition, in a more linear, in a more soft development. Not hurry up, not the fast one, but a slow but good quality one. I thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your time. We're going to take one question from the floor. We'll go with Sir, and then later on, Sir. Can we have the mic? Please, let's stick to 30 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. I have two questions, if you don't mind. The first one is about international legal framework. How do you think that this framework will ensure equity between countries, taking account that countries are not at the same level of responsibility of degradation of the environment? I will take just as an example climate negotiation. So which kind of mechanism do you think that will ensure this equity between countries? This is the first question. The second question is about the Green European Deal. In the perspective, under the perspective of legal point of view, do you think that this Green Deal, which aims to zero CO2 in 2050, which has an environmental issues, but also economic issues. Do you think that this European Green Deal will impact the future relation between European community and Northern African countries, such as Algeria, for example? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much for your question. The first one is a quite heavy one, and I will try to answer as my best. Well, this is talking about the mechanism for equity between different countries, because as we know, countries have different levels of impact in this world. The point at this moment is about how we can conceive our planet, a unique planet, the unique planet we have where to live. Its health, it's quite bad. So we need all together actually to work to resolve this huge problem of climate change, of the impacts of pollution, etc., etc. For sure, the developed countries have got also with the economies a stronger responsibility. So first of all, we as the scientific world, we are asking the developed countries to take into account a most important responsibility on turn down the impact and they also possibility to give resources to help other countries to be on the same line to downsizing the growth of this impact. For the second question, the Green Deal of Europe, yes, it is going for sure to impact in a green way, in a positive way, not only to the European member states, but also to other countries, in particular the countries of the Mediterranean area that is very important for the European Union, as well as, for instance, Algeria, the biggest country as a size in this area. Because it is very important, as I was saying before, European Union and all the world, we cannot conceive anymore a positive environmental policy without considering all together. So we need to be in the same line and to help each other with resources, with cooperation, and with collaboration. I hope to have answered to your question.
Thank you, ma'am. We're going to take one last question. The gentleman that I promised before. Go ahead, sir. Let's stick to 30 seconds, please. Okay.
Pour la conclusion, c'est le problème de la compétitivité de la Méditerranée. En sachant qu'il y a le nord de la Méditerranée et le sud de la Méditerranée. Le potentiel agricole se situe au sud de la Méditerranée. Et si on veut développer un système écologique, écologie, il faut venir vers le sud de la Méditerranée. Parce que c'est de ce côté qu'il y a la qualité des produits et il y a la compétitivité de la Méditerranée par rapport au reste du monde. C'est ça la question qu'il faut poser. Si on impose la norme des analyses physico-chimiques dans la nourriture, donc à ce moment-là, on aura plus de chances dans le cadre de la compétitivité de la Méditerranée, d'être plus compétitif par rapport à d'autres régions dans le monde. Et merci.
Ma'am, we're going to take another question and then I'm going to give you the floor to answer both at the same time. Can we give the mic to the gentleman?
I thank you for your question. And yes, indeed, it is very important, this point that you have raised about the competitiveness. I think that also from a legal point of view, it is very important to underline our strength. For instance, I'm from Italy, from Sardinia, and Sardinia is a region that is in one way considered from economical point of view lower respect to the other region in North Italy. But on the opposite side, the economic from the agriculture, the well-being, it's comparatively higher. And now we are talking about having a region totally green emission, totally emission-free. That means that this competitiveness, it is going to ask us to make the differences between the different countries concerning our best practices, our best products. And agriculture and food, good food, now it's the frontier for the future. The well-being is the frontier for the future. So having countries not polluted, having countries that are not it is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Addis. We take one last question and let's make it very brief, please.
Oui, merci Madame pour votre présentation. J'ai remarqué que vous n'avez pas fait mention de la Convention sur le climat et de l'accord de Paris dans votre présentation, alors que ça devient aujourd'hui les principaux instruments mondiaux pour la lutte contre le changement climatique évidemment, mais qui vont déterminer dans une large mesure toutes les politiques environnementales des différents pays. Bien que ce ne soit pas, l'accord de Paris n'est pas contraignant juridiquement pour les pays émergents, du moins jusqu'à présent, ne pensez-vous pas que, pouvez-vous nous clarifier donc cette omission? Et seconde partie de ma question, la question des droits de l'homme, donc objet de votre présentation les droits de l'homme relatifs à l'environnement, est lié très étroitement donc à la solidarité internationale que vient d'évoquer donc un collègue ici qui m'a précédé dans l'intervention. Quid donc de cette solidarité internationale et du concept des communs en matière de développement économique à travers le monde. Donc, tant que ce concept des communs n'est pas concrétisé réellement, notamment dans les pays avancés, les pays de l'OCDE, est-ce qu'on peut valablement donc parler de transition écologique? Merci.
Hello, do you need me to recap the questions?
Thank you for your question. And yeah, actually, I was asked to give a presentation, not a very long one. We are not talking about a lesson in the university. So I did it more as a thought. Touching the main elements between the environmental agreements and the human rights. And I have talked a lot about climate change. I have several times talked about the climate change as a very important issue to be considered in this relation between the environmental protection and the human rights. I didn't talk expressly to the Convention on Climate Change, as well as didn't talk expressly about many different conventions. We need to have more and more time, but we can maybe have a different seminar talking also about the Paris Agreement and this very important issue. About the international solidarity, for sure, it's very important. In fact, I have talked about the cooperation and collaboration that are part of the agreement, especially the multilateral environmental agreements are principal and part fundamental of these ones. In the economical part, as I said before, it is very important also to convince the contracting parties and the international community to collaborate together to tackle these important issues of the environmental protection concerning the impact of pollutions that are the main mechanism to deal also with the human rights. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your time, and thank you for answering in details these questions. If you guys have any further questions, you can communicate them to us, and we're going to make sure we're going to transfer them to the experts and get back to you with answers.